That's stupid punk rock. I don't, I just think of it as rock and roll because that's what it is.
Neighbors.
No one loves you like he loves you.
You want Bill Sperm with that?
Sunday, we look back in the lab.
Your answer is non sequitur.
All right, so can you guys talk about when you first got in, or first were introduced to Orange County punk?
I had a cousin that played in just like local bands. He's probably like 15 years older than I am, and like he showed me like basic stuff, like Agent Orange, DI, bands like that. And then from there, I got into like metal from my dad, and then from there, going into like middle school, he started getting angsty and pissed off, and then I went back to that stuff, and I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense, And then, I just started listening to, finding more stuff like Chorus Middle Class, gotten that Out of Vogue. I think I listened to that when I was like 14, 13, and that changed everything for me. Like, it's like, holy shit, like I haven't heard anything this gnarly before. So being in Orange County or like growing up, it's definitely like the bands here just totally just resonated with me and like how I felt about everything growing up. So, yeah.
Well, punk rock, when I first met Jeff Atta, we were both seniors in high school, and we took a science fiction class, and, back then, everybody was listening to Led Zeppelin and, Lynyrd Skynyrd and all that stuff. And so Jeff and I started hanging out. We were making a science fiction movie. We were in a science fiction class. Sick. So it just let us leave campus and go to Shakey's, and go to Bunch of Lunch and hang out. But Jeff was into music. I wasn't into music.
Yeah.
And Jeff was reading New York Rocker and Cream magazine and stuff like that. So I'd go to his place and hang out. And I remember Cream magazine had a little article, and it said there's this thing called punk rock. And some of the bands are the Sex Pistols, the Damned, and the Buzzcocks. Yeah. So, in high school, you go and people would go, hey, what bands do you like? And that they judge you for that. And so I'd go, Sex Pistols, damn, never heard them.
Yeah.
Buzzcocks. And just because I was never part of that, I was always an alien in that culture.
Yeah.
So then when, I think New Rose was the first punk single from England to come out. Mm-hmm. And I bought that and I listened to it, and it was just amazing. Yeah. Like when you first discover it and you feel like you're like the only one in this sea of people and what are you doing here? And then you hear something and it speaks to you, and you're like, there's somebody else that feels the way I do.
Yeah.
And so then the more I listened to, the more it resonated with me.
Yeah.
So now we didn't know anybody, we didn't have any friends, and Mike Atta, Jeff's younger brother, he wanted to play in a band with these couple of high school guys, and they wanted him to play the bass, and he didn't want to play the bass. He bought a Flying V guitar, and he wanted to be a guitar player, so they kicked him out of the band.
Yeah.
We went, and they were rehearsing one time, and we, doing Stone songs and stuff, and we sang along with them, and that was so much fun, and I wanted to do it. Never thought of doing anything like that.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we need a bass player. So I got my girlfriend to buy me a bass and a little amp, and I showed up. Okay, I've got this stuff, and they went, you're too old. It's not going to work. So, Mike Atta was, Jeff's brother, and he was out of that band. So I said, well, let's make a band.
Yeah.
So we started jamming, and we got this other guy. Jeff didn't want to be involved. We recruited their younger brother, Bruce, and we were in a band called Blacklash. And then we eventually, Jeff came in. We still didn't know anybody. And so we had a storage space in Santa Ana, and we would rehearse, and we'd rehearse like 5 days a week, about 6-7 hours a day.
Wow.
And so we had heard the Ramones, and we'd seen the Ramones at the Roxy, and I wanted to be Dee Dee Ramone. He wore his bass low, It looked really cool, and I thought they played really fast.
Yeah.
So we probably rehearsed for 6 months just by ourselves, 6 days or 5 days a week, and we just we didn't really know how to play, so we just played faster and faster and faster, and we didn't realize it, And Mike Patton, got us he met Hector from the Zeros, and they got us a show at Larchmont Hall in L.A.
Okay.
And so the Hollywood scene was, the same bands were playing with each other a lot, and so we come on, and we were really straight. Nobody drank. We drank Dr. Pepper, and then we got up on stage, and we were just roaring, and like the Germs girls liked us. Everybody liked, I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden we're accepted by the, Hollywood, and the punks, and so that was so cool.
Yeah.
And we didn't know anybody in Orange County, so we'd go to Orange County and just go to our homes, watch Mary Tyler Moore, whatever it was in the middle of the day, and then go up to LA and we'd play. And then the scene started happening. We released Out of Vogue, and the scene started happening, and Al from Flipside wanted me to write an article. So we kind of discovered punk rock right at the very beginning, and so that was our origin story, I guess,
Yeah. I started off like basically as a singer. Like it was the same thing, like basically, just like a couple old friends, kids that were getting into punk. It's funny because like this like middle school I went to, Santiago Middle School, there wasn't really any punks, so like kids from like Yorba Middle School I knew, and Portola, we would always jam and stuff like that, and I always wanted to be a singer, I never really tried to touch any instrument or anything, but I was probably like, and I sang in like a few bands, didn't really go anywhere with them, but when I was 15 I picked up the drums because I was like, there's no drummers like, or like drummers that can like at least do a 1-2 beat, so I was like, fuck it, I'll just fucking do it, like no one's gonna do it, so I might as well just try to learn. And yeah, I just picked up the drums, never took like music lessons or anything, just plug in my iPod or blast whatever I'm listening to and just try to play along. And I think, and honestly, like I think that's the best way like for people to learn, is just like pick it up, and if you got that natural talent that to learn it, then there you go, that's the magic right there.
Well, you're not doing something that somebody else did. You're not copying somebody else. It's coming up organically.
Exactly.
So in middle class, I had actually played trombone in the high school band.
Okay.
And hated it.
Yeah.
But it taught me to count,
Yeah.
and it taught me to be able to tune my instrument and to know whether I'm in tune or not. Mm-hmm. So Mike had never played, Bruce had never played, so I had a foundational knowledge of music.
Yeah.
And so we just learned by doing, but I'd never played the bass.
Yeah.
And so we just did it together, and we just played so much because we didn't know anybody else.
Yeah.
That we just learned together.
Yeah.
And we didn't really play like other, bands, because we didn't really know how.
Yeah.
And but that's really cool, because then you come up with something and it's yours.
Exactly.
And so we sounded different
Yeah.
than everybody else, and then somebody somewhere decided we were the first hardcore band. I don't know who makes those decisions, but I mean, that's cool, whatever. But yeah, that was for us, we just did it by doing it.
Right, yeah.
Can you guys talk about the DIY side of putting on shows and how you guys promoted?
Well, for us, I mean, the only way to get into the scene is to go to the scene,
Yeah.
meet the people, be there. And the way you advertise is you made flyers and you passed them out. So you would go to the shows and you would hang out in front and you'd pass out the flyers. Some people would throw them away and other people would take them home, and that's how you advertised. There was no other way to do it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, nowadays, with the internet and everything, it's just everything is not as like with flyering. I mean, it still kind of exists, like, but like like my band, like we'll flyer here and there, but mainly everything's just on Instagram, and it's kind of like a virtual way of flyering because people will post it and repost it, and that's how everybody's getting the word out, and either that or just like it's a lot of word of mouth too, like that's still kind of like old school about like promoting is the word of mouth is definitely like still a big thing, and yeah, it's but like that's the one thing I wish like more people would do nowadays is like flyering because like I don't know, it's more of an organic kind of like way of like getting your word out, like especially for shows and stuff like that, I feel, which is sad, but on the other hand the internet is more accessible and stuff like that. So
Well, when Middle Class got back together for the reunion, those couple shows we played, Mike Patton said you got to be on Facebook. That's how you don't pass out flyers anymore. So I got on Facebook. I'd never done social media before, and it is pretty efficient.
Yeah.
Thing I like about these flyers is they're an art in and of themselves, and they're expressing something.
Yeah.
Like Middle Class, Jeff Atta designed most of our flyers, and he had a very unique vision, and I always loved the stuff he did.
Yeah.
But all of the bands are kind of expressing what they're about in their flyers, and the fact that people keep them to this day and people buy them and stuff. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it was like another way besides the music to communicate what we were about.
Yeah, like literally what you said was like they're literally art pieces, and it's so like it's like a different kind of like vibe just to like have a physical piece of instead of just like going on Instagram and it's just a picture, it's just like, oh, this is cool, I guess. Like nah, like it's just it's it's an expression of like like all the bands that are on the flyer, and like it's like it's just like art, like, and that's the one thing that kind of sucks now is just like I mean people still put a lot of time and work into like making flyers, and like for example, like I do a lot of like cut and paste stuff still, and Xeroxing and stuff like that, and like but you have to like if you want to post it on Instagram or whatever, you have to like scan it and everything, and you don't really see like physical flyers anymore, which is like kind of sucks. I mean, there's people that still make physical flyers and will pass them out at the gig, but like it's rare,
With Jeff, the way he used rub-on letters, and so he did a really slow process, but his flyers were really unique, very different. You look at that Exploited thing; our flyers were completely different than that.
Yeah.
But they're a different band doing a different thing.
Yeah.
But it was he would get this blue grid, and he would line his stuff up, and and so that was his thing. His part was the artistic, the expression of the band. We did the music. He came up with that. And no, I still have a lot of our old flyers, and I still like them.
Yeah. It's funny. One of my buddies is trying to do like a zine for us, just like a gun flyer zine. He's like, hey, do you have any physical flyers? I'm like, dude, I wish. I mean, I have like a few, but like, it just sucks. Like, I don't like. And I'm like, I mean, you can find them on the internet, but like, but I'm like, I know you want the physical ones, and it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's weird. Like,
one thing I think it's funny. So I hear that people buy vintage flyers, original flyers, and some of them they spend a lot of money for them, and it cracks me up because we just Xeroxed them.
Yeah.
So you take an original one, slap it on a Xerox machine, and you got the same thing. And somebody's paying $500 or something.
And there's people that will just like bootleg them, like will just literally like.
Well, I mean, you would take it to a Xerox machine, you'd make 500 copies or 300, and you just take them out.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of I find it ironic that they're spending money because this is the original, and it's funny.
Can you talk a little bit about promoters? DIY promoters.
Yeah.
Your experiences.
DIY. Well, I mean, I put on some shows. I set up some shows at like art galleries and stuff like that. For us, we didn't really put on our own shows. That kind of came later. Like I didn't set up shows like that until later.
Yeah.
We would book. We were going up to LA, so they were doing it, and most of the shows were like they were at halls, but somebody was setting that up. I wasn't. We were just trying to get onto the bills.
Yeah.
And then the Whiskey and the Starwood, we were playing, clubs that were happening. So we weren't really, like, I understand there's a whole backyard party scene now, and which is really cool.
Yeah.
But we didn't have enough friends to play a backyard party to come.
Yeah.
So that's, and there were enough clubs that were playing it. And, punk rock was, at that time, the only new thing that was happening.
Yeah.
And the only thing with an energy that was happening. So, when the Cuckoo's Nest started doing shows, it was, Jerry was tapping into, what was hot right then.
Yeah.
And, but mostly we played clubs, because nobody was putting on their own shows. Although, like Ukrainian Art Center, we played a lot of halls, but we weren't involved in. We were just getting on the bill,
Yeah. Yeah, for us, at least when I first started, I would always play we would always be playing backyard shows and stuff like that, and then till maybe when I got out of high school and the internet was really just gnarly with finding new bands, especially out of state bands, and my band started to tour. And then from there, we made friends and stuff like that. And then I decided I wanted to book shows for touring bands. So I started booking, especially in downtown Santa Ana. A lot of the little Mexican restaurants would always have us book shows and stuff like that. And we'd book touring bands, and then just either houses or little hole in the wall one time deal kind of gigs, at weird art galleries or stuff like that. Anywhere really we can play it.
Any place that would let you in.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was a place called Bob's Western Dance Center in Fullerton. I think it was in Fullerton. And I'm not sure how I got a hold of this guy. So they taught dance there, and somebody contacted me, and we set up a show, brought the Germs down to play, and it was ridiculous. It was in a strip mall, and it had glass walls out in front, and the opening band played, and who
was the scientist?
The scientist, and we were immediately shut down. Middle class didn't get to play, Germs didn't get to play. It felt terrible because I brought them all the way down.
Right.
Orange County was along, and those Hollywood guys wouldn't come down here.
Yeah.
Now, Black Flag, I know that's not Orange County, but Black Flag, they had a scene with several bands.
Yeah.
And they kind of started their thing. They did a thing at Polywog Park.
Yeah.
So they had a crew of bands, so they could drop and do a whole show.
Yeah.
Where we were the only people we knew.
Yeah.
Until things really were going, so we didn't really have that where you could go and have 2 or 3 bands just show up and play someplace. So we didn't get involved in setting that stuff up. I later promoted shows and set things up. I booked the Galaxy, and that was a terrible roller skating rink.
Yeah.
But they wanted to have shows. Sound was horrible. Middle Class played once, and then I talked to the guy because I was booking the Vex, and and so then I started booking the Galaxy, and
Nice.
there weren't any places to play, so any place people would come.
Is that
And people still remember the Galaxy, but it was a pit.
Yeah.
All the places were a pit.
Yeah.
Fleetwood was a pit. It was all because we'd tear up
Right.
any nice clubs. We'd break. The owner of the Fleetwood the last night, I remember him saying, "I gave the punkers a place to party, and this is what they do."
Yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, that's what they do.
On to the next spot.
Did you find that too? Do you find that a lot? Things getting really chaotic.
Oh yeah. Literally shows that I've booked. personally, I mean, the shows that I personally book, I mean, there's a bunch of other people that have booked in Orange County that I've been to shows where like literally like literally like it'll be like the first and only show at that certain spot,
Yep.
you know, because either, you know, there's some dumbass fight that happens, or, you know, people are, you know, going too crazy slamming and stuff, and the owners, and a lot of those people are not in the scene, like, you know, they're just trying to make some money, you know, having people or having these bands play, and it's just they don't know
what they're getting
yeah
into.
yeah, right, they think it's probably just some like chill indie band or whatever that's gonna play, and it just a bomb just goes off, and you know, but yeah, it's you never know with those spots, but yeah.
And in the early days, before Orange County opened up and the high schools opened up and all those kids started coming, there wasn't, you know, clubs didn't get trashed.
Yeah.
You know, everybody was older. It was more arty, less, you know, visceral and hardcore.
Yeah.
But when the high school kids started coming, so they were looking at punk, what we were doing, the punks were doing, and they were seeing the surface of it.
Yeah.
They didn't get there was kind of a understood joke behind it. So it was all kind of make believe and put on thing, all the violence. So these kids show up and they're taking it all literally.
Yeah.
So they come in and they start tearing it up. They start beating up the original punks, and you know, it was chaos. And so that's when things got really hairy and things got, you know, because they came in with a completely different perception of what punk rock was.
Yeah.
You know, the original punks were kind of intellectual. They were glam guys.
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of, everybody kind of understood the joke.
Yeah.
You know, it was still really intense, but yeah, when the high schools opened up, that changed.
Start putting people in the hospital.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we played like Middle Class, you know, Out of Vogue. That was, you know, the song we're known for, still known for. And when at the Fleetwood, we played a show, and there was this, you know, like hippie kind of guy, long-haired guy, came in to check out what the punks were doing. And that was a rough place.
Yeah.
And so he comes and he's standing kind of in the middle of the crowd, and we're playing, and we see the crowd just pummel this guy. And they had to carry him out. I mean, he was really badly hurt. And we did not dig that violence. There was no, you know, that was the last show we played Out of Vogue. That's how we lost our hardcore audience, because we stopped playing that stuff because we didn't agree with it, you know, and there was no controlling it, you know, because there were just so many kids and they were just going nuts. But seeing some guy get beat half to death just because he had long hair, fuck, what the hell is that? You know, Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, but those people took it really seriously. If you didn't wear the right, you know, I mean, punk rock was about do whatever you want to do, right? And then all of a sudden there was a uniform you had to wear, and if you weren't wearing the right uniform, then you were going to get beat up by some kind of stupid gang from some fucking high school. You know, pardon me. That was bullshit. You know, to our, you know, hey, maybe he was going to cut his hair in a week from now and become one of us. You know, but now we're going to beat him up because he's not in the tribe.
Yeah.
You know, I don't respect that. Was bullshit.
I remember going to shows, if I may just cut in here, where there were like a couple of girls who were set up. They would have us with you know, clippers, and they would be giving people haircuts, because hair was really important. If you had short hair, it meant you were into a certain kind of music. If you had long hair, well, you better get a cut.
Or you're in trouble. You're in danger.
But this is like at the you know, at the Save the Mask benefit. So it was like before all the violence. There were just a couple of girls, you know, like, hey, we'll help you out. You know, we'll cut your hair off for you. You know, and
on the germs girls, you have to get the germs burned.
Oh yeah.
And our first show, like they liked us, so they said, hey, you want to get this is what we're. I walked up to them and they were giving somebody a germs burn, and they said, you want one? And I'm like, hell no, that looks like it hurts.
Yeah.
And I think they thought that was cool because, you know, that was, you know, you're going to burn yourself with a cigarette because of the germs, you know?
Right.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about, like, you're going, you know, when you're starting out, did you see similar, like, you know, people not knowing what was going on, kind of you and starting violent, or was it more diverse for you? Or
I mean, yes. I mean, like especially a lot of the backyard shows, like in Anaheim and Santa Ana. I mean, lot of those shows, were happening in, like in the hood, basically, and like, like there would be, people from neighborhoods and gangs that would show up at the shows, and I mean, most of the time they were chill. Like I've seen some gnarly stuff go down at those shows. There's definitely, those people they definitely, brought, some violence and stuff like that to the shows. But for the most part, it was mostly all just, they're just there to party. It wasn't anything like, intimidation or anything, unless, people fucked with them, then, that's when shit hits the fan. And yeah, I've seen some gnarly fights and stuff like that. And, and then you would have like, just like random high school kids or middle school kids show up, it's like their first show, and they're just, they're not all decked out all punk or anything, and yeah, a lot of those shows, it would just be like a bunch of random people, so there was definitely a diverse crowd, but but yeah, there's definitely the violence was, it was there, and nowadays, it's definitely chilled out. Not a lot of people nowadays like slam anymore. It's dying out. But when I got into punk, it was still a big thing. Like,
Well, people were pogoing when
Yeah.
when we went to the Mask.
Yeah.
They would pogo.
Yeah.
Circling back for a minute, when I did that article for Flipside on the Orange County scene that I wasn't aware was percolating.
Yeah.
I went to parties.
Yeah.
And in Fullerton, I went to a party. I don't know. I think it was at the midget's house, maybe. And Steve Soto was at the door, and they'd had trouble. I guess they had a party the week before,
Yeah.
and somebody had some trouble. So Steve Soto was there, and he was like, "Well, who are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm Mike Patton. Who are you?" You know. And I'm like, he's like, "Well, I don't think you can come in." And then somebody recognized me, and So I watched it, but that was definitely, it was a house party,
Yeah.
Because there was, they were just starting out. There were no, nobody knew who they were.
Yeah.
And so actually in HB too, they were house parties that I
Yeah.
went to. They weren't clubs.
Yeah.
And so they were doing it, but see, there was a circle of friends. We were an island. There were four of us in Santa Ana, and that was, what Santa Ana's like.
Yeah.
And so it was just us. We had to go to LA to play.
Yeah.
There was no place to play. We did a battle of the bands. Well, there was a battle of bands at Bob's. No, it was Cowboy Boogie. It was a club right off the 5 freeway.
Okay.
And so we played a halfway house one time, and then we played. We were going to do this battle of the bands. We show up and we do sound check. We play half of one song, and they told us that we had to leave.
Yeah. Right.
What? That's not music. So yeah, so we had to. Yeah, we had to go to LA to play.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is now too. Like especially recently, Gun actually played yesterday at the Virgil in Hollywood, and yeah, a lot of the shows that we've been playing have just been in LA. Here in Santa Ana or just Orange County in general, there's spots, but especially in downtown Santa Ana, there's a few little bars that you can play, and there's La Santa, which is kind of like the newer, bigger kind of hall or little venue that's pretty decent size, but yeah, it's just been so hard to find book shows and stuff like that, especially down here, and a lot of the shows have been just happening in LA, so I feel you on that. It's I love playing in Orange County, but LA is more of an opportunity because there's so many.
Well, our goal
places.
was to play LA. That's to us that was where it was happening.
Yeah.
There were no punks. We were the only punks.
Yeah.
And we didn't look, we just looked like straight kids in jeans, you know. And so there was no reason to play in LA or in Orange County because as far as we knew, it was just us.
Yeah.
And then everybody else, which was normal, Right.
Yeah.
So, but once I discovered the Fullerton scene, Agent Orange, awesome band. And then,
Yeah.
Social Distortion was percolating, and Adolescence came up, and met Eddie and all that. And then I know Eddie put on that show at La Vida Hot Springs, Cow Slam Zero.
Okay.
And it was like every band from Orange County, and I think Middle Class was the headliner. Gaze X was coming down,
sick.
and that thing fell apart. A third of the way through, and the cops came and broke it up.
Yeah.
And so none of the bigger bands got to play.
Yeah.
But so that was kind of a DIY thing, sort of, but it was still a club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talk about the Adolescents. I know you're involved in the Blue Album, and
Yeah.
you're a fan, and you brought that record, right?
I have the Blue Album, yeah.
Yeah, you want to pull it
Yeah, I'll
up?
pull it out. Let's see.
China White was the last band to play at Cal Slam Zero.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was basically every band that was hanging around with Eddie.
Yeah.
So Eddie was friends with the Adolescents before I ever met them. Well, the guys that would become the Adolescents. And so to back up a little bit before we get to the Adolescents, so we were in the Subtitles, and we went in to record. Eddie had, we joined. It was Eddie's band, and he had me come over to see his band, the Subtitles, and he asked me, "Well, Mike, what do you think?" And I was like, "You guys suck, man. It's terrible. You're not punk rock, man."
Yeah.
And so a couple days later, he calls me up and he said, "Well, I fired my band, and I've got these shows. Can you help me out?" And so I talked to Bruce Atta, and I said, "Okay," I felt bad, and he was a good guy. So we started playing in the band. Bruce was out after 2 shows, and Matt Simon comes in, and but the thing about the Subtitles was Eddie would let me do whatever I wanted to do. So he had this song, American Society. It was real fast, real kind of, normal punk song.
Yeah.
And so the more we got into it, and the more drugs that were consumed, and Eddie would let me do whatever I want. So I said, "Okay, let's slow it way down. I'm going to sing. You're not singing. I'm going to sing."
Yeah.
And then we were going into the studio, and I said, "I want to produce it." I'd never done anything
Yeah.
like that, and he let me do it. So I went in, and so American Society came out, and it came out really good.
Yeah.
And so Adolescents were starting to get a buzz, and Lisa Fancher wanted to record them, and so I said, "Well, I want to produce the album," and they said, "Okay." So I got to produce their album, and Eddie dropped out, and we went in and recorded the album, and it came out. It's like a classic.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
It's gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so those guys, they just had lightning in a bottle right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Rick Agnew wrote those amazing songs.
Yeah.
And went in. There wasn't a lot to do in the studio. They just knew what they were doing, so it wasn't like a lot of advice. Really, I saw my role as a producer as just making sure that they were comfortable and they did what they wanted to do, and nobody told them that. I thought that's I didn't know what a producer did.
Yeah, right.
And so it just came out great.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like one of the first albums I've ever listened to, and it's just like just the epitome of just the Orange County sound.
Well, and it was different from
everything
punk at the
else.
time. It was melodic.
Yeah.
And it was just a great album from the get-go.
Yeah.
And of course, right after the album came out, the Adolescents started to fall apart because all that intense attention, and that puts the whammy on your head. Things fell apart, but that's a classic.
Yeah.
I'm proud to be part of it.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. All the songs are just classics, and just nothing can beat this. It's a great record.
What makes that album special to you?
Songs like No Friends, Creatures, it was definitely the lyrics definitely hit home, especially growing up, in kind of a silent, dysfunctional kind of family. My parents divorced I was really young when they divorced, so a lot of these songs definitely like hit heart, growing up kind of in a confused, aggressive adolescent and stuff like that. And it's, and it's just like it was just the soundtrack to, what I was going through at the time. And, I still listen to this. It's still like relevant, at least like, I'm 27 now, and, I don't have that much, a teenage aggression or anything anymore, but, a lot of these songs, I appreciate it more from a musical standpoint, like, especially with Rick Agnew and his riffs, just like, it's just...
I think Kids of the Black Hole tells the best story.
Yeah.
I mean, it captures what was going on with them. I think to me, that's the highlight of the, the album.
Definitely.
Because it really puts you right there. It kind of, you feel it. You feel what that was
it's
like.
Kind of like a tale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It was the centerpiece of their live show too. They used to close.
It was always, the crowd would always go crazy with that. Amoeba's a really good song, but it's it's kind of not about anything, but it's got a great hook.
It's a fun song.
Yeah, it's a fun song.
Yeah.
But Kids of the Black Hole, that's real. There's something real with that song, I think.
Definitely.
The band could change gears musically, like they have their slow songs.
Yeah, they got their
songs,
fast,
silly songs. Like it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely, there's so many different sounds on this. I think that's what makes it so, relevant to this day and so unique. Like, each song is its own little different little thing, So, yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, so I'll tell you a bad story about, so we go in, I did the subtitle single, came out good, Rondi was playing it, and it was, we go in to record the Adolescence album, and we go into this nice big studio, 24 track, beautiful, great big thing. First thing I do, I have a can of Dr. Pepper, I set it on the board, and I knock it over. Oh. The first thing I do is Dr. Pepper's pouring into this beautiful, mixing board, and the engineer, Tom Wilson, just is hating me, like, what the fuck? And he opens it up, and he's drying it off, and so me and Tom had kind of a strained relationship.
Yeah.
But the album came out good, and I did a couple other projects with him, as the engineer.
Nice.
What else did he do?
Well, I think he worked on China White. I think he worked on the China White album.
And maybe TSOL as well. He was Lisa's guy.
Yeah, he was Lisa's guy. Lisa did most of her stuff with him. Yeah, I did the Minutemen at Casbah with Chaz, and I did Christian Death at Casbah with Chaz.
Didn't you go out to San Pedro to do the Minutemen too? Did you do another one out there?
No, they came to, because Spot was doing them, and they wanted something different, so they came down and recorded at Casbah with me.
What's your perspective, both of you, on what Orange County punk is evolving to right now in this current state?
Well, to me, the thing that really struck me about what's going on now, which was really surprising because I'm not plugged into it at all, but is that the Latino kids are what's driving punk here. And really fundamentally, the feel of punk to me is feeling marginalized, feeling like you exist in a society that isn't yours, and you're just marking time, and you don't have a home, and it makes total sense that those kids in Santa Ana feel that way, because that's true with them. So what they're doing is legitimate, it's authentic, and it's real, and that's what punk's all about, right? It's about real, no bullshit. Don't put on any airs, just be yourself and express that primal scream, right? Yeah. So I was surprised by it, but it makes total sense, and I think they inherit it well, because it was all about being not fitting in, not having a tribe, and looking, feeling like a stranger in a strange land,
Yeah, pretty much what Mike said. Yeah, like Like it's especially in Santa Ana, like with the Latino community and a lot of the Latino punks, like there's so much like of that now, and it's like, I mean, obviously back in your day, like I don't think there was, I don't know if there was, you know, more of like a diverse kind of crowd, or like,
The crowd was initially is mostly white.
yeah, that's what I would assume.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, it wasn't very diverse. I
Yeah.
mean, there was, Mad Dog, black girl that was a drummer of the Controllers. There was the Zeros.
Yeah.
There were Mexican guys from Chula Vista.
Yeah.
But, most of the bands were white kids.
Yeah.
But, but it was the same thing because there's this veneer, and there's this veneer in Orange County of the suburbs, and everything is copacetic, and everything's cool. The lawns are manicured and stuff like that. And then underneath it is all this fucking chaos and churning. And I remember, like most of the punks I knew came from broken homes.
Yeah.
Dads were alcoholics. They had fucked up childhoods.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to my brother one time, and I'm like, I'm explaining this to him, and I'm like, well, what's wrong with me? I mean, my parents stayed together, and they love me, and all that stuff. And like, what is my problem? But why is it so important to me? But it was, and so I didn't come from a broken home, but I didn't belong where I was, and I still don't. But at least for a moment, I was plugged in, and people still remember, what I was involved in, and that's pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I feel about, especially like Orange County. There's so many different backgrounds. People don't really like, or at least like people from other like states or countries or whatever that see like Orange County, they think like from the surface, and it's bunch of white middle class to rich kids, that are just beating each other up.
It's all Irvine.
Yeah.
And no, it's Anaheim, and
Yeah.
it's Garden Grove, Santa
Westminster,
Ana, where there's
like-
more people there.
Yeah.
And those people are totally marginalized.
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of time before those kids in Irvine and Mission Viejo and stuff explode.
Yeah.
Because the same shit is going on with them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's you're in the suburbs, and everything's supposed to be 1950s.
Yeah.
And it's
Nope.
not. It's not.
No, not at all. And like I would say, like Santa Ana now is definitely, they're like all those current bands in Santa Ana, they're hoisting the flag right now for Orange County. Like so many good bands are coming out of Santa Ana, and yeah, it's cool to be part of that right now. I mean, I briefly lived in Santa Ana at one point. I mean, I've pinballed around, with my family through Orange County, but like I would say Santa Ana is definitely like, I feel like a lot of those people like I grew up with, so I kind of like resonate with the Santa Ana scene more, and a lot of those dudes like were like older than me, and I still look up to a lot of those guys, and they're still hoisting the flag right now for Orange County, and it's a cool thing.
Yeah, I'm amazed that it still is relevant.
Yeah.
You would think, but after, punk rock was really the last musical thing that you had to go to participate in. Everything got kind of more, I don't know, spread out. You could just plug in on your computer. But you had to go to get into punk. You had to go to it and meet those people. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's still relevant, because everything else is, there's these moments, but there's no central place that everybody gets together and becomes and participates. And I think that's part of the power of punk rock, but it still amazes me it's still going on.
Yeah.
It's a
crazy.
long time ago.
Yeah.
And the fact that anybody remembers that what middle class was doing. I mean, we didn't sell records, we weren't, we were bigger when we got back together than we ever were when we were playing, as far as draw, and it's amazing. It's cool.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy. Like, would you ever think Out of Vogue would be selling for like $1,200 right now? Like, yeah, it's insane. Like, especially like record prices right now. Like, especially a lot of the Orange County stuff is just like ridiculous. Like, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, to me, that it's worth a lot of those, especially like Out of Vogue and like a lot of the Orange County stuff is worth like its weight more than gold, But it's just crazy. A lot of the stuff, like prices, like a lot of the old stuff, is just going up and up and up and up.
Well, and the thing that I mean, it's kind of I don't want to sound stupid, kind of humbling because that means it's that valuable to these people, and they want to have part of what
it's history,
what we experience. They want part of that, and so that's pretty amazing, because we didn't sell many records, so but that makes it rare and makes it obscure, and I was talking to somebody about the Suburban Lawns again. I'm getting out of Orange County, and they asked me, well, did you know Suburban Lawns? I go, well, I knew the name. I didn't know the people. We didn't move in the same circles, but and they were just kind of a weird arty band. And but now they're obscure and they're amazing. Like it's pretty weird. So being only marginally popular, and then a lot of time you become legendary. It's like, okay, I'll take it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.